You can shut the hell up, spat Ryan. You just said the hell word. You can't say the hell word, Allie shot back. Well, you said it twice, he screamed. Listen, I interrupted, stomping my foot. It doesn't matter how many times you say Bloody Mary in front of a mirror, because it only works if you're alone, which means nobody can prove you're lying if you say you did it. I turned around and counted to 10 because I was starting to lose my temper, and Mom always says to count to 10 when I lose my temper. I'd been annoyed at Ryan ever since he told us that the janitor was a murderer, which I knew wasn't true because animals can smell evil people, and even Ryan knew that he had a pet cat. Do you guys want to see a real haunted house? Darren asked. The three of us slowly turned to face the only one who had been silent since our ghost conversation began. If you're afraid, that's fine, Darren shrugged. If anyone's too scared, just say so. Everyone else should follow me. I would have stayed behind if Ryan or Allie was scared, because I just explained to Darren that I was keeping them company, but they were waiting for me to say the same thing, so no one spoke up, and we all just followed Darren. This is your house, dumb butt, Ryan sneered as we walked through the back door. Darren didn't say anything. What the hell kind of game are you playing? Allie asked, as she got braver with her swear words. Since he didn't respond, we kept following his lead as he walked through the kitchen that always smelled just a little bit rotten, and headed to a door. Hey, you've never showed us down here, I said in a hesitant voice as he opened it, revealing stairs to the basement. He shrugged. I get it. Don't feel bad, Mikey. Lots of people are scared of ghosts. You can stay up here where it's safe. Then he turned and headed down the stairs. I didn't want him to do my thinking for me, so I followed him. Allie and then Ryan stayed close behind. It was weird. I know that basements are supposed to be cold, but it was summer and we could see our breaths. By the time we got to the bottom, what's even stranger was the second metal door at the bottom of the staircase. Why is there a door at the top and at the bottom? I asked, shivering as Darren pushed open the metal frame. Don't you only need one? For some reason, my voice sounded funny, like we were outside. It was too dark to see the opposite wall, so I couldn't tell how big Darren's basement was. You're going to get in trouble if you play with matches, Allie warned, as Darren lit a candle that was just bright enough to make his face glow. Her voice sounded like it was more nervous than she wanted us to know. No, I won't, Darren answered. He sounded sad. This is to keep the ghosts from escaping, he explained as he closed the door behind us. I really didn't like the sound it made when he locked it. Darren, Ryan asked, his voice super high. I changed my mind. I don't want to see the ghost. When Darren didn't answer, we just stood there in the dark and quiet. My stomach felt like my hamster was spinning his wheel through it. I wanted to tell Darren that I would leave and keep Ryan company so that he wouldn't be scared, but my mouth was really dry, and my tongue didn't feel right. I'm sorry, Darren finally whispered. I could tell that he was trying to keep himself from crying. You guys really are my best friends, but my dad said we had to do this. He sniffed. You can't leave. They're here, and they're waiting for us. Darren, if you're trying to scare us, it's not working. Allie tried to make herself sound brave, but there was a tremble in her voice. Darren sniffed again before muttering another quiet, I'm so sorry. I wanted to speak up, but my stomach was in such a tight knot that I knew I would throw up if I opened my mouth for even a second. Mikey, Ryan asked quietly. He sounded like he might start crying too. Where are you? Ryan also sounded different, like he was a bit farther from where he had been when the door was first locked behind us. I could still barely make out Allie in the low candlelight, but Ryan wasn't where he had been just a second ago. I'm not sure why, but I felt the need to fight the knot steadily rising to my throat to call back out to him. Ryan, don't move. There was a faint squeaking of sneakers that stopped. Why? Allie spoke up again. There's nothing down here. This is all just a big stupid joke Darren's pulling on us because he thinks we're all just a bunch of stupid babies. She sounded braver than before. Allie was right. Darren probably thought it would be funny to scare us after hearing us argue about ghosts. He was just waiting for us to admit we were terrified, and then he would turn the lights on and laugh at us like it was so hilarious to pretend to lock your friends down in a creepy cold basement for what? A ghost, or multiple ghosts, plural, like Ms. Jameson was teaching us in English class. And what did he want us to think these ghosts were going to do to us? Ryan, I tried turning to where I thought I heard him last. Ryan, come back, we're gonna leave. Allie had sounded brave, so I had to try to sound brave too, or when this was over she would never let me live it down. Ryan didn't answer, besides Darren sniffing and sobbing. All was quiet down here in the cold and dark. Allie joined in calling for him. Ryan, get back here or I'll tell Miss Jameson you said that she taught you how to say hell. That's a lie. He finally yelled back, but he sounded even farther away than before. Since I was turned away from the candlelight, the rest of the basement was completely pitch black, like how ink looks from a pen when you snap it in two by accidentally drawing too hard. Ryan, my voice sounded whiny. I didn't care if Allie made fun of me forever for not being brave. Something was incredibly wrong down here. I wanted to go home. It's too late, Darren said, his voice still wet from crying. It's time for them to feed. And in the darkness came a light, two twin lines that stared at us from beyond, deeper into the basement, deeper than any basement had the right to be. There was a shadow there too, something tall and dark I could barely make out. Ryan, Allie asked, voice echoing off cool, damp walls that suddenly seemed not cold anymore but blisteringly hot, almost painful to the touch. This time, Ryan replied, and yet his voice came from deeper within the walls of the place, past the odd glowing lights that seemed ever closer every time we blinked. I'm here, he shouted, voice oddly cheery. Darren continued to sob. I'm sorry, guys, he murmured. It's here. Allie gave him a look. There was laughter coming from Ryan now. It's kinda nice here, guys, he urged. You should come see what I found. Then a door on the other end opened, and more glowing lines. No, now I was certain these were eyes. Joined the others. The basement seemed to stretch into the door, and beyond I could see Ryan. Allie shouted. His figure was there, at the door, hands beckoning us forward. Allie ran toward him, but stopped midway. Darren lit another match. What the hell? I shouted. What we thought was Ryan was an illuminated, pale-skinned thing that hung from a door, levitating ominously off the floor. Its eyes glistened a pale white. It reached out and tried to grab Allie, and behind it there was movement. Darren, I seethed. Give me the match. He whined, but I snatched it anyway, and I tossed it into the dark. There were so many more pale-skinned things in there. They were small, and yet the way they moved made me fear them like I'd never feared before. A taller one walked behind them. Is that I cut myself off, pausing. Ms. Jameson. No, it wasn't. It looked like our teacher. But something was very wrong with it. Its skin did not seem to wrap. Its eyes were pools of white. And others, kids in our class, were there. And Ryan, no, something wearing his skin. They chittered as they advanced, and we backed away. I counted 29 of them. There were 23 other kids in our class, and before summer 6 more had vanished. We had assumed they skipped school for vacation. It's okay, guys, Darren sobbed. The others didn't scream. This wasn't a basement. This was a goddamn graveyard. How many others had Darren befriended and lured down here? Darren, this isn't funny, Allie snapped. Stop this. But in the darkness, Darren did not respond. We backed into the door to the stairs, and I unlocked it, swinging it open. We moved through and shut it, the clicking and clacking of the knot people behind us. They slammed themselves against the door, and then stopped. That's when I gazed around. We weren't looking back up at the first floor of the house. This impossibly so was still basement. No, what the hell? I yelled. Why are we? There was a hiss, and twin piercing eyes appeared above us, one of the figures crawling through a vent. Click-clack, it hissed. It's not that bad, not Ryan said, his eyes a pearly white. It's really fun. Darren, what in the actual hell are you up to here? I said, grabbing his stupid, blubbering face in both hands. His eyes spun wildly, trying to look anywhere but at me. Behind him, I could see Allie going at the not Ryan thing with a broom as it tried to squirm out of the vent. She caught it square in the face, and it retreated with a sibilant hiss. I sputtered, caught. My dad and Ms. Jameson were having an affair. She got him mixed up in some warped Ouija board stuff, like some kind of Ouija for sexual favors deal, I think. And what in the everlasting hell does that have to do with us, Darren? I shook him, 2 muscle fibers and 1 nerve away from giving him whiplash. Allie broke the broom in 2 over the next advancing ghoul trying to squeeze through the vent, and began poking at them with the sharp end. She jabbed one in the eye, and it let out a long, wounded howl, black ichor streaming down its ruined face. I shook Darren again. Speak up, time is short. He craned his neck and looked behind him at the vent, and the pale shapes that Allie was fending off. His eyes went wide, only the whites showing like hard-boiled eggs. She's into something called Thoth, some old Egyptian god or whatever that she summoned. Thoth needs. He trailed off, a bubbly line of spittle running down his chin. I smelled piss and saw a dark spot spread across his crotch. I swear to regular, non-Egyptian god, Darren, I will skin you and wear your pelt like a coat if you don't tell us what in the basement dwelling hell is going on. Thoth, he needs souls. Young souls, 32 of them. I got 6 right before school ended, and Dad helped me get most of the rest. We just made 3 more. Every 3,191 years he needs 32 souls, and Dad thought Miss Jameson's class would do the trick. He wanted me to lure you and Abby down here. Jesus, what a guy won't do for sexual favors. Darren, do you have any idea what you've done? It was for Dad, he said, and collapsed into another blubbering snot, bubbles forming and popping at his nostrils. I kinda felt sorry for the kid. Kinda. Allie, all okay there? Is the vent secure? I shouted into the darkness, where I could barely make out Allie's form jamming the broken broom handle, now covered in a blackish, crimson substance, at the pale shapes again and again. Tough girl, that Allie, I thought. The grate covering the vent was bent outwards, and pale fingers reached through, trying for purchase. If by secure, you mean about to unleash 29 soulless revenants of our former 6th grade classmates, then, yeah, we're good, boss, she said. And funny, too, I felt a gelatinous thought forming in the back of my mind. It gelled and took substance. It felt right, felt good. I swiveled Darren's head around to face me. Darren, call your dad, I said, locking eyes with him. Dad, he shouted. It echoed in the basement, fading away to the grunts of the pale horde at the vent. Now, you twat muffle. With this, I said, sliding his phone out of his back pocket. Oh, he said in a snot whisper. That. It took him 3 tries, his shaking fingers having a hard time pressing send. As the call started to ring, I couldn't stop myself from glaring at Darren. Did I feel sorry for him? I mean, sure, kind of. But at the same time, this sniveling little ass hat had set up 29 innocent people for murder, and all because his dad had a raging hard-on for a psycho. When he answers, you tell him that you need him down here. Make up whatever excuse, just get his sorry ass in here. Darren. At my hissed out instructions, Darren flinched, a small sob escaping before he nodded his acquiescence, and raised the phone to his ear. Oh, screw you, I snapped, jerking his hand down and eliciting a startled cry of, Mikey, from him before I reached out and pressed the speaker button with a meaningful glare, looking back to Allie, who was honestly a goddamn trooper. I couldn't stop the wince from forming as I saw the vent continue to buckle and warp under the strain of our undead classmates pressing into it. She was doing a damn good job of perforating the disgusting bastards, but they didn't seem to really care or notice. Rude if you ask me. Dad, I heard Darren stutter behind me before I turned around to glare at my friend. Former friend, definitely former. All friendship ties were severed when he tried to offer me an alley up as sacrifices. Dad, I need you to meet me in the basement, please. Behind us, from within the vent, our classmates hissed and groaned, and I immediately whipped around to gaze at the squirming dead, my finger snapping to my lip as I hissed out a desperate that earned a look from Allie that screamed really, and a series of indignant sounding groans from the corpses. I guess they didn't like being shushed. Stab them with a broom handle, sure, but don't shush them. Then not Ryan. I think he was actually amused if the hissing coughs were anything to go by. Or maybe he was just trying to be intimidating. I don't know. Behind me, I could hear Darren pleading with his dad to meet him down here. Something about a gas leak. Hearing that, I spun to face him once more, an incredulous look on my face as I listened to the bull spewing from his mouth. And then I heard, well, damn, Darren, just hold on, I'll be right down. We don't want anything ruining all our hard work. And then a click. He'd bought it. Darren, I say this with full disrespect. Your dad is a dumbass, okay? You're a dumbass for following along in this crazy ass murder booty call scheme, and your dad is just. By the end of my rant, I was full on screaming at my former friend even as tears, and snot flowed freely down his face. Gross. I'm sorry, Mikey. I'm so sorry. He wheezed out between sobs, but I'd honestly had it. 29 people, 29 innocent people had been murdered by this pair of inept jackasses. Yeah, well, I'm sorry too, Darren, I replied, reaching out to pat him on the shoulder before giving him a vicious shove towards the vent even as I yelled out, Allie, come on. At my signal, Allie jumped back from the vent, abandoning it to the corpses. As she did, the vent finally gave way, buckling out, and falling to the ground with a resounding clang, followed by a body that slid to the floor with a wet thunk. Cringing at the sound, I gagged, looking away as it started to drag itself towards Darren, even as one body after another began to slide out from the vent after it, following suit. Mikey, please help me, Darren screamed, terror lacing his voice as he tried to scramble back from the corpses. The first undead classmate, a brunette girl I sort of recognized despite her fetid decomposition, had already latched onto his ankle and was being dragged along as he tried to scoop free. Are you serious, Darren? You were literally going to do this to us, and now you want us to save you. Oh, dude, screw you so much, I snapped before grabbing hold of Allie's wrist and running to the door. Darren's dad, Dumbass Senior, burst in from an unseen black door hidden against the shadowed wall. Dumbass Senior took a shocked look at the chaos in the room before focusing on his screaming son, who by this point had managed to acquire a second friend that was steadily pulling their way up his leg. What did you do? What did you do? He bellowed in dismay as he set his sights on Allie and me. With a sound like crunching apples, the two former classmates bit into Darren's calf muscles and slurped as blood ran down their cheeks and necks. Fleshy gristle hung from one of their lips, swinging back and forth like a wet dingleberry as the thing chewed Darren alive. Daddy, help me, he screamed. What did you do? DS wailed as he raced toward his son before dropping to his knees. In one smooth motion, he pulled a pistol from his waistband and shot the two monsters in the head. Pop, pop. I had never seen a real gun before and was too shocked to react. My former classmates' heads snapped back like they'd been hit with golf clubs, then fell still against the floor. A bunch of other monsters behind them jumped onto their rubbery bodies and were eating them before their arms had stopped twitching. Fix me, Daddy, please, Darren blubbered. Then he turned around to look at his ruined legs. No, Darren, don't. But his father's warning was cut off by Darren's scream as he saw that his legs now looked like the inside of a beefy bean and cheese burrito. Just listen, there's nothing I can. They ate my legs. Darren, you have to understand, I don't have a choice. Please fix me. Please make it go off. Tup. Darren fell dead beneath his father's gun as his dad wiped away a tear. No one moved. Then he lunged, grabbing Allie in one hand and me with the other. My shoulder burned in pain as he squeezed. Your corpses are going to crawl for 1,000 years, you little idiots, he breathed in a dangerously quiet voice. He narrowed his eyes at me. Starting with you. My spinning mind told me it didn't matter that I pissed my pants because no one would find my body. My eyes burned as I realized that my mom and dad would spend the rest of their lives trying and failing to find out what had happened to me. Darren's father lifted the hand with his pistol in it, and, in doing so, he released Allie. She wasted no time punching him in the nuts. It sounded like the time I dropped a cantaloupe on the floor at the supermarket. He dropped to his knees, grabbing his crotch, but still grasping the gun. Run, Allie screamed, but I was already one step ahead of her. That step meant everything. Darren's father was just able to her ankle, sending her crashing to the ground. I had already reached the obscure door before turning around to see what had happened. He was angrier than I had ever seen a person as he grabbed both of Allie's knees. Don't leave me, she screamed. Mikey, help me. I don't remember the conscious decision, but not matter how many times I revisit that moment, I know I would make the same choice again. Closing the door behind me cut off all sound from the other side. I was back in Darren's kitchen. I was alone, and as I walked back home, I decided not to tell anyone the truth, not even my parents. Even though it was a lie, I ended up saying the very thing I was worried people might believe. I had chickened out before entering Darren's basement, leaving Ryan, Allie, and Darren to go on without me. That was the last I saw of them. As the lone child from my classroom who did not vanish, everyone wanted to hear my story. I got good at repeating it. I never found out if Darren's father or Ms. Jameson disappeared as well. 32 vanished children dominated the conversation enough on their own. In the years since, I haven't followed up on them. I'm afraid of what I might find out. I'm afraid they might track me down. And I'm terrified that I might finally get what I deserve, instead of being the only one who didn't.